When the sun is at its peak and the hive begins to overheat, honeybees activate a natural air conditioning system. First, water collector bees fly out and gather droplets of water from nearby sources. These bees aren't acting randomly. They're following divine instructions. They don't have blueprints. They don't consult weather reports. Who gave the honeybee the knowledge to perform complex climate control, to cool and heat with perfect balance, to adapt with precision and teamwork? It's none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hopefully, we're all learning a lot with the web series We Never Thought of It That Way. And each series gives us something to think about, that there are always signs present around us that show us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful upon us for granting all these endless bounties for us. So my dear viewers, we live in a world where maintaining the perfect indoor temperature requires complex systems. Air conditioners cool our homes in the summer. Heaters warm them in winter, and ventilation system in skyscrapers manage airflow around the clock. It's a marvel of engineering and energy consumption. But what if I told you there's a tiny creature that does all of this, cooling, heating, and ventilating without electricity, without thermostats, without any man-made tools? Let's meet the honeybee, the world's smallest and most efficient climate engineer. Inside the hive, the temperature control is not a luxury, it's a matter of survival. The honeybees maintain the hive at a precise 35 degrees centigrade or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the weather outside. Whether it's a blazing summer or a freezing winter, that temperature barely fluctuates. This isn't random. It's a calculated, organized, and synchronized effort that rivals our most advanced HVAC systems. But how do they do it? Let's start with summer. When the sun is at its peak and the hive begins to overheat, honeybees activate a natural air conditioning system. First, water collector bees fly out and gather droplets of water from nearby sources. Then they return to the hive and carefully distribute the water across surfaces inside. At this point, worker bees begin to fan their wings, some flapping up to 230 times per second to create evaporative cooling, the same process our own body uses when we sweat. This airflow helps lower the hive's internal temperature. And it doesn't stop there. Other bees take up station at the hive entrance, forming a natural ventilation shaft by continuously flapping their wings to create airflow, pulling in cool air and pushing out the hot. Who taught them to perform this coordinated climate choreography? Now consider winter when the temperature drops below freezing. While most insects perish in cold, bees activate an internal heating system powered by their own tiny bodies. They gather in a dense cluster around the queen, forming what scientists call a bee ball. Then, by rapidly vibrating their flight muscles without moving their wings, they generate heat. This shivering raises the temperature inside the hive, sometimes by as much as 20 degrees centigrade. The most astonishing part? The bees rotate their position. Outer bees move inward to warm up, while the inner bees take their place on the outside, ensuring equal distribution of warmth. The temperature inside remains a steady 35 degrees centigrade, warm enough to protect the developing brood and maintain honey production. There is no thermostat, no control panel, just divine instinct. Modern science has only recently begun to uncover the intricacies of this biological climate control. But centuries ago, the Holy Quran already spoke of the bees' divine programming. In Surah An-Nahl, verse 68, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And your Lord inspired the bees that make homes in the mountains and in the trees and in the rooftops." The key word here is inspired, not taught through trials and error, not evolved over time, but directly inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. These bees aren't acting randomly. They're following divine instructions. They don't have blueprints. They don't consult weather reports. Yet, they act as a superorganism, each bee playing its role with exact precision to maintain that perfect climate inside their home. This isn't just fascinating survival technique. It's crucial to life on Earth. Without precise temperature regulation, the brood would die, honey production would stop, and colonies would collapse. In turn, pollination would be affected and crops around the world would suffer. The harmony inside the hive ripples outwards into the entire ecosystem. So now take a moment to pause and reflect. Who gave the honeybee the knowledge to perform complex climate control, to cool and heat with perfect balance, to adapt with precision and teamwork? It's none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who has equipped every creature with exactly what it needs to survive, thrive, and fulfill its role in the grand design of life. Even the creature, as small as the bee, carries with it a sign of divine brilliance. We invent machines to solve our problems, but honeybee were given their tools from birth. They've been using these methods long before we even knew what climate control meant. So, who taught the bees such perfect temperature regulations? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we never thought of it that way.